Hi everyone, my name is Gargi, and I'm going to be talking about being so good they can't ignore you. I kind of hate the title because it sounds very douchey. But the idea is how to make your work visible. The thing with the idea is that if you do good work, then someone should take notice and reward you accordingly to your work. But that's not how it works in real life, unfortunately. And self-promotion is not something that comes easy to most people, maybe because of cultural background or the upbringing. And it can be even painful sometimes. So what I want to do in this talk is to give you a framework so that it's less painful to self-promote and brag and not undersell yourself. So this talk is going to be divided into three structures. The first is meritocracy and the myth of meritocracy. The second is how do you make your work visible? And the last is once you are successful, how do you help others around you be successful? If you want to follow the slides, for some reason, you have this link. You can find the slides at this link. So onto the first part. So meritocracy, before we get into the myth of meritocracy, I would like to talk about what meritocracy is. So it's this belief that everyone has an equal opportunity for success and based on personal achievement and merit, regardless of your background or where you come from. And tech certainly intends to be a meritocracy, but we all know what road is paved with good intentions. And it's particularly hard for people who've have had some success or have achieved something in tech to believe that it's anything but a meritocracy, because it's the system that has rewarded them, right? So if they've got to where they've got to, it has to be because of their merit and not anything else. And the problem with meritocracy is that the belief that individuals can and should be measured on the intellectual output, divorced of their identity, their gender, and any other distinguishing characters. So the first problem is that the assumption that everyone has equal access to information is wrong, because we all live in our silos. And if you were to live in one geographical area of the world, you might have access to more information than the other geographical area. And it's even the thing is that who your network is determines what information you're getting. I wouldn't be here if my network didn't tell me that there's a conference here and you should apply. And just not that. The second part is that we're all humans working with other humans, writing software that for the benefit of humans. So this another problem with the already flawed notion of meritocracy is that the worth of an individual is not measured by their humanity, but their intellectual output. So meritocracy is based on this utilitarian interpretation of our work. So utilitarianism is this philosophical system which states that the most moral action is the one which maximizes utility. So in the end justifies the means. So one of the well-known problems with adopting utility as a measure of morality is that it ignores the concept of justice. So as long as you're maximizing output, any bad actions you take are justified because they contribute to the greater good. So it objectifies people, reducing them to levels of tools, and most cases is code for whatever delivers maximum comfort and is least painful to other people. The biggest paradox of meritocracy is Emilio J. Castillo, who's a professor at Sloan School of Management, ran this study where he studied 9,000 people in an organization where there are HR practices like a bonus for the performance, and the whole spiel is about rewarding meritocratic ideals. And what the research found out was that women, ethnic minorities, and non-US based born employees received a smaller increase in compensation compared to with the white man, despite having the same jobs, working the same hours, having the same manager, and most importantly, having the same performance review score. So the paradox of meritocracy builds on the other research, which shows that people who believe they are the most objective can actually exhibit the most bias in their evaluations. And while this is kind of disheartening, I think the biggest takeaway that I have is nobody cares about your work as much as you do, and this is kind of the system we live in, and we have to figure out how to navigate this system so we can work it to our benefit. And with that, we move to the second part of the talk, which is how to make your work visible. The idea is that whenever, at some point in your career, you'll have to prove your value, that you belong here, you're good at what you do. But it can be hard to talk about your achievements without underselling yourself or feeling like you're boasting. And that if you're great at your job, someone should automatically recognize that the work you do and reward you with promotions or increased pay. In practice, it's often more complicated than that. There's some work which is more visible and memorable than the others, and it's frustrating to have done something that you think is really important, but you later realize you weren't rewarded for it because someone who was making the decisions thought that didn't understand what you were doing or just didn't remember what you were doing. So the first part is building your personal brand. So you have a personal brand, regardless of whether you've consciously chosen to cultivate it or not. Your personal brand is whatever people are saying whenever you're not in the room. My personal brand is that I really care about open source, and people sometimes make fun of it, but I'm okay with that. I can live with that. And your personal brand is a platform for growth. So your personal brand helps you realize what values you identify with, what are the things you care about, and they help others realize that if there's some task that needs to be done, maybe you care the most about it because that's the value system you identify with. So to build your own personal brand, you need to be clear about what are the goals you're trying to achieve. You should be confident in your abilities to achieve those goals and be authentic in your actions to achieve those goals, and use whatever your personal values that make you unique to achieve those goals. The other thing you could do is build an experience map for yourself. So in UX design, whenever you want to get from point A to point B in an app, you go through this experience map of getting from point A to point B, and that's something you can do for yourself, where you realize, where you say that if you're currently let's say a junior developer and you want to be a senior developer, what should the experience map for that look like? And it's a way to quickly identify your personal brand when you're working with other people, that these are the values that you care about. And the biggest thing that you can do to make your work visible is write a brag doc. So Julia Evans has this great blog post about writing a brag doc, and what happens at most places is that every 6 months or a year or a quarter, you have to sit down with your manager and talk about what you did for the last X months. And then what usually happens is like you go scramble up, look at all the PRs you made, think about, oh, this PR was useful and maybe did something. And the other pull request, not so useful. And maybe I shouldn't talk about that. But what happens when you do that is a lot of work that you did falls under the radar because you didn't think it was important enough. And a brag doc is not meant to be like a self-evaluation or like a resume or a vision board. Each of those have served their own purpose, but somewhat different. Instead, it's like a brag doc is a living list of all the achievements you've done. So one of the biggest things, like you don't remember all the cool things you did. Maybe you wrote a test that you don't think is important, but helped figure out helped catch an important bug later on, which you didn't know about, or you knew about but forgot because your peers don't show that, or your manager doesn't. You might have the best manager, but they certainly don't remember all the cool things you did. And writing a document listing everything you're proud of is an important reminder that can help you during your self-eval. And what's especially good about writing a brag doc is that whenever you have to update your experience map of what your experience has looked like so far, you can go look at your brag doc, go back and update your experience map every year or 6 months, depending on what timescale you choose. And what can you add to your brag doc? It could be the pull request that took forever to merge. Does not matter if the pull request has 3 lines of code or 300 lines of code. As long as you're proud of it, you should add it to your brag doc. It could be the design documents you contributed to, or even maybe you did some discovery work to figure out that the service that your team needs to write has already been written by some other team, and maybe you can collaborate with them to use their service. Discovery work like this should also be included in your brag doc. And it could be a talk you gave. It could be a lightning talk or an internal talk that you gave at your company. And I will share a brag doc template with you that can help you start your own brag doc. So list down your goals for the year, like list your major goals here and share them. Share them with your manager, share them with your coworkers. And it's really nice because then they can see that what's in their power to help you achieve and accomplish those goals. And add your code and non-code contribution to the project, but when you add those, add metrics if you can to that. So let's say if the code you wrote helped speed up the service by X%, add those numbers because you then have solid data to back up what you're feeling. And it doesn't have to be a numerical impact. Maybe the thing you wrote helped GDPR, for example. Maybe whatever you needed was important for law purposes, I guess. Yeah. And collaboration and mentoring. If you're a junior intern, you can still junior engineer, you can still mentor a lot of people. If someone new is on your team, you can have them on board onto your team. If there's an intern on your team, you can mentor the intern. And you just don't have to be a mentor. You can even be a connector. If there's a new person on your team, you can introduce them to your network, and this should also be a part of your brag doc. And collaboration where you discover, like there's other teams. Maybe there's someone on another team who wants to use your service, and you help them figure out how to use your team's code. And it doesn't have to be in the realm of your team. It could be helping the company. So most places allow people after a year who've been there a year to be in the interviewing pipeline. So you can work to ensure that the interview process is fairer, or if you're in the company, you can figure out if you see that the performance review could be fairer. And the biggest thing, in my opinion, is is tracking what you learn, because a lot of times you have a lot of work that you are learning, but it could be that what you're learning is not aligned to your goals. So let's say I care a lot about systems software and I want to write more lower level code, but what's happening is I'm learning a lot more about benchmarking and testing, and while surely they're important things, it's not aligned to my goal of learning more about systems software. And this helps me track down when that's not happening, and I can go back to my manager and say, in the last 3 months, what I worked on is not related to any of this, and can we change that? And it could include your participation outside of work. So that could be contributing to an open source project you really care about, or a blog post that you wrote, or a talk at a meetup event that you gave. And the most important part is don't forget the invisible work. So what happens a lot of time is we do a lot of fuzzy work, which is hard to quantify. It could be like improving the code quality or ensuring that the code review process is good and more in-depth. And maybe it's just refactoring so that the next person who comes and adds code it's less painful for them. But like this is the kind of work that's especially important to add to your backlog because it's most likely to fall under the radar. So when you're doing this, explain the goals. So for example, if you were going to refactor something, state why you wanted to refactor this. And then there's the things that you did to refactor it. It could be you wrote tests to ensure that when you refactored, things didn't break. Or if there were already tests, you ensured that they were still working once you refactored the code. And then you can show the visible effects that your refactoring had. And the good thing about sharing your backlog with your coworkers is they can tell you and help you make this impact more visible. And the last thing is how to help others. So in general, if you're someone who really cares about your work, then it's really positive to share your goals and accomplishments. And for sure, the things that haven't gone well too. And with your friends and coworkers, because it feels less like you're working alone and more like everyone's in it together and you're helping each other get where you want. So you can run a brag document workshop, which is, for the first part, everyone writes their brag document, and for the second part, you can pair up with other people and help each other brag more. And this is something I do with my friends, is we set up a call bi-weekly or once a month to update our brag docs. It's especially helpful if you have, so my brag group is mostly other gender minorities, and what I see in my friends is that we don't brag enough, so we help each other brag more. And the big part is encourage each other to brag more. And yeah, so in my opinion, what's so great about having a brag talk is like it lets you find out now rather than later that things are not going so great. So the first time I ever did a performance review was like 4 months after I started my first job, which was weird because the times align that way. But when I scrambled to find the peers, etc., I did not put up a lot of things that I should have. And then I also realized like I didn't learn a lot of things that I wanted to learn, and that whatever I was working was like way diverged from what my goal was. So having a brag doc is a great way to immediately find out that things are not going so well, and maybe you should act on it. The other part of being visible and making your work visible is networking. As much as I hate to say it as an introvert, it's really important because you can have your personal brand, but if you're not showing up to places, nobody knows about your personal brand and you're not telling your own story. And getting out of your comfort zone and networking ensures that you can create new and exciting opportunities for yourself. So I have some networking hacks as an introvert, mostly for introverts. I hope they will help other people too. So one is having a blog or a microblog. A microblog is hint, hint, Twitter. So having this ensures that you can take your time and think about things and formulate your thoughts and then engage in real dialogue with others. This one is my favorite, is become a connector. If you work for a big company, you can, I work for like a 20-person startup, so I already know everyone. I mean, who do I connect to? But if you work for a bigger company, you can be a connector, which is every week or every 2 weeks, get a lunch or coffee with someone. Doesn't have to be someone in engineering, could be someone in sales or marketing, and that's a great way to like learn about the bigger picture that your company is trying to solve, and like not be siloed into your tech bubble, and you can be indispensable because then you know more and like have lesser knowledge gaps than other people because you have talked to people who work in different areas of your job. Third is a hack, which is fairly stressful, which is speak at an event. So the good thing about it is that you've already spent so much time thinking about what you're going to talk about that when people come up to you, people will come up to you, and two, you can already talk about what you talked about. So that's a stressful hack, but a hack nonetheless. The fourth is organize a comparatively low effort event, which I used to run a book club, which is very low effort because you only have to read a book and people will show up and you can talk about the book, and it was a great way to meet new people and still be talking about the book and not other things, which was nice. And the last is, if you do end up at a big event, one of the hacks is talk to N people before leaving. So if I'm here, my N is usually less than 3, but I will talk to 3 new people, and then be like, okay, like I have no more FOMO and I'll be out of here. One of the pitfalls, those were my hacks. One of the pitfalls that happens with junior engineers especially is glue work. Tanya Riley has a really great, it's incredible talk about glue work. It's in my references, but glue work is essentially the non-technical aspects of your job. So like establishing a coding standard, like you can be a junior engineer and you could care a lot about code reviews and like work a lot to ensure that like no pull request gets merged in without a code review, or like at least 2 people have to agree before merging a pull request, or setting up collaboration with other teams. And a lot of these fall upon your shoulders because they're part of your personal brand and your values, and it's something that you really, really, really care about. Brag documents are also a way to help you track this, that you're doing too much glue work, and maybe you should talk to your manager to ensure that more glue work doesn't fall on your shoulders. So don't pigeonhole yourself. And the last part of my talk is what we owe to one another once we're successful. Success can have different definitions for different people, but Once you've figured out how to make your work visible within your organization, help other folks around you, pay it forward. And a lot of times the competition we see is artificial competition. Like, there is much more growth and much more opportunity outside the career ladders that we see. And if you think about those opportunities, you'll make more progress and feel more progress. And better yet, you'll find ways and opportunities to partner with people within your your peers, because you're no longer competing for the same limited promotion slots. So you should mentor folks. You could be a junior engineer. You could be someone starting out, but you have lessons that you've learned that you can teach others. Hype those around you. We're all in this together. We all need to brag more. Maybe not all. Most people certainly need to brag more. And you can run a brag.org workshop, help other people brag more. And you can set up networking events. It could be something very low-key, low-effort, like a book club or a conference if you want. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you so much.